Well, good morning. You know, the acquisition of 3 UP hospitals by LifePoint Health resulted in the establishment of several foundations that have provided millions of dollars in support to organizations dedicated to promoting healthy lifestyles for area residents. This morning we'll learn more about one of those foundations, the West End Health Foundation, when I talk with 2 members of the board of directors. My guests are Tom Edmark, who's the president, and Corey Bjorn, who's the secretary of the board. Our conversation starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Here's your host, Don Ryan.
And it's nice to have you both with us. Tom, Corey, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
You know, as is my tradition, I like to give people a chance to get to know who the guests are. So we'll start with you, Tom. You're not really a Youper by birth, are you?
No, but I'm not an apple knocker either.
No.
I've been here for well over 40 years, so I consider myself a quasi-Youper, if you will. So.
Now you, I think, may be the only person we've ever had who is a graduate of Washington State University.
Go Cougars!
Okay. And you went to learn about landscape architecture.
I have a degree in landscape architecture from Washington State, and graduate of 1974, and worked for a construction company out in Seattle for a couple of years, and came back to the UP in 1977 to start our own landscaping business. And then in 1978, you know, during the winter, you can't really do much.
No.
So I started to work for my father in the insurance Iron Range Agency in Ishpeming, and went on from there.
And he had bought that in the early 70s, several agencies.
Correct.
And
Yep.
formed the Iron Range Agency.
Don DeGuerra, Larry Weil, yeah, back in the day.
And then you eventually bought the agency and owned it for a number of years.
Bought the agency in he sold the agency in 1983, and I purchased it back in 1988. And then retired in 2015, sold the agency to 4 of my employees, and have been retired ever since.
Okay, but still staying very active, and we'll talk
Still
more
staying
about
very
that.
active. Yep.
And Corey, you've been very active in a lot of things, but I think you might be a Youper by birth.
Sure am. Yep, born and raised Marquette County Youper too. It's a little town called Diorite, just west of Ishpeming. So yeah.
You're a Northern Michigan University graduate.
Yep, twice over.
And I saw that you got your master's degree in literature.
Yeah.
Did you have a different, did you have a career in mind when you got that degree?
Sure did. I literature and pedagogy, but a bachelor's degree.
I had to look up the meaning of the word pedagogy.
It's a fancy word for education, theory of education. So I always wanted to work at the university level. So that's why my first job out of college, out of my master's degree, was at Finlandia University, speaking of Youper universities, and was there for a long time. But then my career just took a different path for various nonprofits over the years.
Yeah, and you worked for a number. You worked for the chamber. You were involved with UPAS.
I sure was, yeah.
And for a time with the West End Foundation.
Correct.
But it all began at Bell, didn't it?
It did.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, when I was leaving, I had 3 babies in the span of 5 years, and the drive to Finlandia, because I continued to live in Ishpeming during that time, was a little daunting. Those roads were bad. So the opportunity came up for me to become the grant writer and assistant director of Bell Foundation, which was that nonprofit that was tagged onto the hospital to do fundraising. And so that's when that started back in 2009, and really have been involved with the foundation ever since.
Okay. Let's talk about how this all came about that we're dealing with today. LifePoint Hospital acquired Portage Hospital in Hancock, Marquette General Hospital, and Bell Hospital, all separate transactions. And as I recall, the Attorney General kind of oversaw that process and said, well, you have to buy the hospital from the community. And I guess the question is, how do you do that? And I guess, not guess, but I know this was the answer, in that each of those hospitals received a fairly major grant to make this all work, to pay something to the community. They also had to do other things as well. But so what did that mean for the Bell Foundation at that point?
Well, initially, when LifePoint purchased Bell and Bell Foundation, we transitioned into the Western Marquette County Health Foundation. We were only going to receive $1 million initially, And based on what we had to do as far as compliance, there really isn't much you can do with, you know, $1 million as a foundation. So we had conversations with Superior Health Foundation, Community Foundation in Marquette County to see if there was something that we might be able to, you know, work out with them, collaborate. And as time went by, and the Attorney's General Office had a lot to do with this, that $1 million number went up to $7 million.
Okay.
And and that basically, we received our first $1 million installment on November 1 of 2013, and then $2 million installments in January, March, and July of 2014.
Okay.
And so, and we basically, prior to the acquisition in 2013, you know, we were kind of a bastard child. We were off on our own, and sometimes, you know, these dates just stick in your head, but August 26th of 2013, we restated our Articles of Incorporation, changing the name from Bell Foundation to the Western Marquette County Health Foundation. So.
Okay. And let's explain that. What's involved in the West End Health Foundation?
Sure. So very much when we talk Superior Health Foundation and Portage Foundation, those are larger foundations. So one of the things that they said when it came to these foundations that were going to be purchased or going to be started with this gift from the hospital was that it had to kind of serve the service area of that hospital. Bell, as we all know, Bell Babies, everybody knows, is a little bit different. It's a small critical access hospital.
I'm a Bell baby, by the way.
Exactly. So Portage covers Houghton counties, a couple of different counties up there. Superior Health Foundation covers all of the UP. We are the Western Marquette County Health Foundation because Bell Hospital primarily serviced the residents of the 2 cities and the 9 townships that make up Marquette County. So think Negaunee Township west until you hit Spur, maybe. And so our goal was then to start granting money to organizations that are going to benefit these people. What's really, really nice about this is we have such amazing organizations and people doing the hard work to make the health and wellness for seniors, youth, children, a whole host of other different things in the community. All we have to do is help provide funding for them.
Okay, and that's a big charge.
It
We'll
is.
talk more about that in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on today's show after we take this 2-minute break. And my guests this morning are Tom Edmark, who is with, well, in fact, they're both with the West End Health Foundation, and Corey Bjorn. How is the foundation managed now? I know you don't have staff. It's all handled by the board, right?
We started with a shared services agreement with the Chamber of Commerce, and Corey was executive director of the Chamber at that time. And having been involved with the Bell Foundation, it was perfect. It was very seamless. And then Corey left the Chamber, and so the shared services agreement involved the executive directors of the Chamber. We had basically 2, and it became increasingly difficult with regards to, you know, they were the executive directors of the Chamber, and they were also executive directors of the foundation then, and you know, there was turnover, and so we decided to go ahead. In 2018, we hired a part-time foundation manager. Pam Christensen did a great job, and fast forward, she resigned in 2021, and we had another individual, and we decided it was time to, you know, maybe move on and look at something different. So we approached the Lake Superior Community Partnership as far as possibly entering into a professional services agreement with them. And they agreed, and we signed a contract with them in July of 2020, and they've been managing the day-to-day operations of the foundation ever since, and they're doing a fantastic job.
What about the funds? Who manages the funds? It's got to be a professional job for someone to manage just $7 million or whatever the total is.
Yeah, we've had a great partnership with Bell Financial since the beginning. We did a request for proposals to area investment firms to manage the funds, to allow them to grow, so that way we can continue to do the good work with our philanthropy. So we have a volunteer finance committee board, and the board, you know, directs the investment manager with, you know, investment policies, risk policies to see it. And I mean, we're happy to see that it's grown even with all of our philanthropy to over $11 million.
Are there limitations on the kinds of things you can invest in, being a foundation like this?
No, I mean, no, not really. We follow the normal ethics of a nonprofit board is essentially what we've done. We have those policies and different things like that.
I did notice that in 2023 you transitioned the organization in some way. What was that about?
We were operating as a 501c3 charitable organization, and as such, we had to take 10% of our earnings of a particular year, and that was, and say for example, our earnings for 1 year were $300,000, 10% of which is $30,000. There's a public support component where we had to raise $30,000 in order to satisfy, being a 501c3 nonprofit. The first 5 years, we were given the $7 million, and so for the first 5 years, we were in really good shape. And after that, after 5 years, that $7 million dropped off, and it became increasingly difficult for us to fundraise 10% of what our earnings were for the previous year. So in 2023, we transitioned to a private foundation, and it's totally different.
Yep.
You want to go into
And what's the current balance you have now?
11
I don't
million,
mean right down to the
Oh,
penny, but
it's all right. We're proud of it.
11,500,000 as of
Yeah.
November.
that's fantastic.
And that's keeping in mind that we give out almost $500,000 a year. So one of the reasons that we did also make the switch to the Lake Superior Community Partnership is we just didn't have the workload for a full-time staff person if we weren't going to have to fundraise. Even when we were fundraising, we gave 100% of every dollar we raised to whatever organization we were partnering with. We did not want to have to be this. You see it. We're an organization with $7 million in our bank account, competing with funding for these smaller nonprofits like Cancer Care of Marquette County, like Big Brothers Big Sisters, who need to raise money to actually sustain their operations. So by switching from that public charity to that private foundation, we were able to say we're not going to do any fundraising anymore. We follow a different set of rules, mostly making sure that we're giving out the correct amount as opposed to raising a certain amount, and that way we can really maximize our philanthropy with the limited staffing that we have, mostly volunteer board.
That's fantastic.
And a caveat to that is, as a private foundation, our spend policy is that we need to take 5% of what the balance is in our portfolio at the end of the year, and we need to spend that the following year. So, for example, 2025, let's say we end at 10 million, 5% of which is 500,000. We need to spend 500,000 in 2026.
Okay.
And part of that is operational expenses are included in that as well. But what's interesting is that as the portfolio grows, we need to spend more, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
We like to give
Right.
money away.
Yeah, great. Okay, we've got some more questions, have to take another break. Back
Yeah.
after these important messages. Once again, my guests this morning are Tom Edmark and Corey Bjorn, both with the West End Community Foundation. Just a couple of quick points. You no longer have any connection with Bell Hospital. I mean, they're totally separate from
None whatsoever.
Yeah, and the other thing I think it's important for people to understand is you don't raise money for individuals. I mean, you raise money for organizations that help individuals.
Correct, yes.
That's important. Now let's talk about that grant. I know you have some grants. Like, first of all, there are some ongoing grants. I know you have some long-term commitments. One in particular with the
Great Lakes Recovery Center
Lakes
is
Recovery
one. We deal with a lot of different organizations, not aside from the grants, but for example, the Great Lakes Recovery Center, in 2023, we committed $300,000 to them for the John Kivila Center. And
Yeah, we have some ongoing partnerships that we say. So we have 3 grant cycles that I tell people, those are competitive. So you're applying against other organizations, and it always depends on the slate of the quality of the proposals. But beyond that, we have established partnerships with some pretty impressive organizations. One is, of course, we love our school districts. So the 4 different school districts on the west end of the county, so Nice, Negaunee, Ishpeming, and Republic Michigami, they see thousands of students every year. So they have that opportunity to really benefit the health and wellness of those students in the different cohorts. So each school district gets $25,000 a year to do what they need, strategically speaking, whether or not it's a school nurse, mental health program, different things like that. Start the Cycle is an amazing organization that has done a lot of work. So for them, we do a $10,000 title sponsorship where they buy bikes for their bike raffle. So look at this, they're able to raise $25,000 sometimes for their bike raffle. They don't have to take the expense of the bike out of it. We cover all of those costs, so all of that money goes directly to the program.
You know, and when we talk about the fact that it's the West End Health Foundation, that's interpreted pretty broadly
It
as
is.
far as what health is.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that contribute to health.
It is.
Isn't that true?
That's exactly the case. That's why I say we have such a small geographic area, but such a broad topic. Really, the best thing people can do is reach out to us and say we have this. We want it to affect the residents. We have another partnership with the Swim Teal Lake Benefit for Diabetes, MC Squared, active PT sideline program for injury prevention at the school districts. Those are the things that we do ongoing every year. And then once a year in the spring, we hold a capital grant cycle. In the summer, a proactive, so we pick a theme. And in the winter, a programmatic grant cycle where we give out up to $50,000 each cycle to individual organizations that have programs or equipment needs, or they're really trying to move the needle on some sort of big issue that we've chosen.
I saw one that caught my attention, which I had never heard of, was the First Tee Northern Michigan. What is
Perfect
that?
timing. We just had him come and
Perfect.
speak at our board meeting.
Ken Hruska, yeah, they applied for a grant and for a program this past fall, programmatic grant cycle, and it was like, what's this, you know? And I'm a golfer, so I was, you know, I was kind of curious, and so we went ahead. We provided them with a $3,000 grant. Their program was up and running in Marquette, but they want to get it going on the West End.
Okay.
And there was some skepticism on the part of one of our board members, and so we had Ken come in and do a presentation at our board meeting just yesterday. And it's golf is a metaphor of life. I mean, it's the frustration, the challenge, you know, this sort of things. It was very interesting.
I'm sure many of the organizations know how to apply, but I think probably the best thing, if they have questions, they could contact you, or you have a lot of information on your website, don't they, that
Yes.
people can find out about how to apply for grants.
Yeah, the partnership keeps our website updated. It's great. You know, they post our links for when the grant application cycles open. It's all also on our Facebook page. So if people have a nonprofit that they work with that's focused on health and wellness, make sure to give that a like, because that's where they're going to announce when our grant cycles are due, what the restrictions are within them, how much we're giving out. And we love these new programs that people come in. We have great long-standing programs like Cancer Care of Marquette County, which does amazing work. And we've known about them and we've funded them since the beginning. But when these new programs like First Tee come into place and we get the opportunity to see what new things are going on, we might not grant you right away, but we might invite you to come to speak to our board. You know, all these organizations were new at some point in time. We remember Start the Cycle when it first started, and look at the great things they do now.
Yeah.
And I know that you and the other board members are all volunteers. So thanks for all the work you do to make this possible.
Thank you.
We love giving money away.
It's great signing a check that's
And
not
thanks
mine.
for coming in this morning and talking about it.
Very good. Thanks, Don.
I'll have some other thoughts for you about the penny in just a couple of minutes. Well, you have undoubtedly heard the U.S. Mint will no longer make pennies. It turns out it costs more to make them than they're actually worth. They'll still be considered as legal tender, but the final batch is expected to enter circulation in early 2026. And with no new coins being made, the circulating supply will shrink as older pennies drop out of use. It's also likely that collectors and hoarders will be removing many from circulation. Should we care if the penny disappears? Well, there's no doubt it's become less important as we carry out our daily business. Checking with Google about how people pay for transactions provided some conflicting findings. They report that around 83% of adults still use cash at least once a month, but studies also show that cash payments account for only 14% of all transactions. Most people use something other than cash most of the time, but do use cash on some occasions. Debit and credit cards are used most frequently for payments. If the penny disappears, will we need to change the pricing of some things? Often our purchase total is some odd number, and that will continue. especially when we have a 6% sales tax and the price of gasoline always ends with a 0.9. There are undoubtedly other examples that contribute to the problem. But there's another side to the story of the disappearing penny. This coin has meant something to us for a long time. It's remembered in thoughts that provide guidance and inspiration in our lives. How often have we said, "A penny for your thoughts," or been reminded that a penny saved is a penny earned? We've also been cautioned not to be penny wise and pound foolish, or told something will cost a pretty penny, and no one liked to be called a penny pincher. But there's more to the story of the penny in our lives. It was before my time, but the song "Pennies from Heaven" was introduced in 1936 by Bing Crosby in a movie of the same name. Every time it rains, pennies from heaven. Don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven? You'll find your fortunes fallen all over town. Be sure that your umbrella is upside down. But better if I could have sang that, but you wouldn't have liked it. So a number of other big-name singers also recorded that song, plus some major performers also starred in a remake of that movie, despite the fact that Steve Martin, Bernadette Peters, and Christopher Walken starred in the 1981 version like the original in 1936. It didn't do all that well with the critics or at the box office. But like the penny, the song has endured for generations. So the penny is more than is more than a coin. It's part of our history. And despite the fact they've stopped making them, it will probably continue to be part of our lives for years to come. And remember, our Sunday morning get-togethers are worth every penny. I'll be back in a minute. Our time is up for another week. The Today Show will be here in just a moment. Remember, you can also see our show on the internet at uppermichigansource.com and streaming on TV6 Plus on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. Thanks to Tom Edmark and Corey Bjorn for coming in this morning to give us some insights into the West End Health Foundation. And thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you again next Sunday morning.